And then I'm like, and then I feel bad for like, okay, behind it.
Alrighty.
But
All right. Hi, everyone. I think we're going to get started. Are you good? Okay. Okay, welcome back. Hope everyone got food. If you can hear me okay. We are starting our panel a little early because we had less time for questions, and I know there were a lot of questions that came up. So I'll let the panelists do their own introductions. We've done a few already, and then we'll just get right into it. We have some questions if we end up having some lull, but I think this is a time for the parents, the family members in the audience to maximize the expertise of the folks that are here to help us today. So Camille, if you want to just give a tiny introduction, because they've already heard from you, but not everybody on the panel has.
But we also support individuals who are on the spectrum and are trying to navigate through the various systems that we all have to go through in life.
so, because I'm autistic, I don't want to tell you the same thing I told you this morning. So, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I am a founder of a nonprofit called Supernova Parenting. And that nonprofit focuses on empowering parents and caregivers of children who are neurodivergent, who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, and who have mental health vulnerabilities by giving them education, support, and resources. I am also featured in a documentary called Navigating Autism in Communities of Color that was executive produced by somebody sitting next to me, and features both myself and actually my entire family, because my entire family is neurodiverse. And I think that's all that you don't know about me, maybe more so.
Thank you, Brenda.
Just to help narrow it down, she said someone is saying next to her, it's not me. Just gotta narrow it down. Hi, my name is Brandon Ajmani. Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Okay, I got the good thumbs up. So I am a self-advocate individual with autism. You'll know more about me as we go on, but basically I was not diagnosed until I was 18. And right now I'm a teacher at a non-public school working with kids with disabilities, 4th through 6th grade. I am a self-published author working on my second book. I am also currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership because I have to be a school principal one day.
My name is Kimmy Matsumura. I'm the mother of an autistic daughter. She's almost 13 now. She was diagnosed when she was about 3. And I started Chicago Autism Network, which is a local nonprofit that supports families in helping them find and afford effective autism therapy and supports.
Working? Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Peer. I am actually one of the clinical psychologists here at Rush. I work at the Art Center as a clinical psychologist. I'm a child and adolescent psychologist by training, but most of my clinical practice has actually evolved to serve young adults on the spectrum, which has been a pleasure and an amazing transition in my career. I also do diagnostic evaluations for children, teens, adolescents, adults with a concern or question about autism. So I'm so glad to be here today. Thank you.
Why don't we open it up to the floor with questions? Right away. Christy.
Sorry, but so we'll start with Brandon. Okay, so where are you getting your PhD? This is just out of personal curiosity because I also am a teacher, but not sounding like it's as cool as where you teach. And where do you teach?
So, as far as what I teach at a school called the Connect Academy, in Lombard. It's a non-public school that serves, individuals with disabilities that basically the public school setting wasn't working for them. So basically, we like help like navigate in a therapeutic setting some of those behaviors. I've had experience actually working with, my good friend Holly, Miss Holly back there. We used to work at a, yes, I put you on the spot. We used to work at a school together, years ago. So it's kind of good to get back into that experience. And as far as my doctorate, I'm actually doing an online program at the Rockhurst University in it's in Missouri, but I'm doing it online. Where it's actually, for more technical term, an EDD, a Doctor of Educational Leadership. And yeah, it's a really good program. It's a 2-year full program. It's really fun, but it's also a lot of work. But it'll be worth it once those years come up. So Rockhurst, yeah, like like Elmhurst. Yep.
All right, the next one is, okay, so Natasha, you say that your entire family is neurodivergent. Is this including your husband?
Yeah, so I myself have half of the DS5, I let it out.
Hmm.
My oldest daughter has ADHD and autism. My youngest daughter has autism and general anxiety disorder, and I believe a little OCD too. And then my husband has ADHD and mood disorder.
And what mood disorder does he have? Just out of
So
curiosity.
right now, they are just labeling it, so we're both veterans and veterans care is, yeah, but. So, right now they're labeling it just as a mood disorder and they're doing more testing and evaluating and we're on wait lists and things like that. So right now they're just clarifying it as a mood disorder.
Okay, awesome. And Cynthia,
Yes, hi.
Yeah, okay.
so you do clinical art?
I'm a clinical psychologist at the Art Center, which is the Autism Assessment, Research, Treatment, and Services Center upstairs on the 6th floor.
Does that have anything to do with visual arts?
No, I know, it's sometimes confusing. It's a really cool name, it's a really cool acronym, but no. Yes.
Got it. All right. So that just ends that question there. I'm an art teacher, so that sounded super cool. And then for Kim E. So you say you find places for people to go to, is that correct?
Yeah, so when I was barely introduced to the autism world when my daughter was diagnosed, or even actually when we were trying to find a diagnosis, I felt like I had a part-time job scouring the internet to find which places could service us, which had the shortest wait lists, where they were, who took my insurance, and I felt like it just took too much time and I wanted to be able to connect sooner and I knew families needed that as well. So on our website, we have a directory of autism service providers and different programs that is similar to Yelp without the reviews, right? So you can check off all the boxes. You can say, I'm looking for a speech therapist in Hyde Park for a 5-year-old that accepts Medicaid. And you can click all those filters and then you have a list of places that meet your needs and see it on a map view as well. And you have all their contact information. Just because I know the sooner families can connect with those resources, the sooner they can get services started and just the happier everyone is.
Are you strictly in Cook County?
No, we do all of Illinois. Anybody that we know of that's in Illinois, we'll put them on the list.
All right, thank you. And is your website somewhere on here?
It might not be. It's chicagoautismnetwork.org. And if you're looking for the directory, go chicagoautismnetwork.org/directory.
Thank you so much. I have a 5-year-old who struggles with proprioception and has really weak muscles in his hands. And I'm a clinical psychologist myself, so I do a lot of scaffolding with him, trying to manage the emotional dysregulation that occurs. But sometimes it's hard to tell when he's just giving up. And that sort of fine line between encouraging him to keep trying because I really want him to develop that grit, but not sort of, not wanting to create like extrinsic motivation, but more intrinsic motivation. And I would love some strategies on how to do that because I'm constantly trying and feel like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
So this is my favorite because this is literally positive discipline. So does your child have special interest?
Cars.
Cars. You know what you need in order to drive a car? You need hand grip. You need to be able to steer and move that car, right? You need to be able, so you need to build your grip to ride and race cars. Intrinsic motivation, whether we're talking about homework, whether we're talking about building your muscles in your in proprioception in your hand and gross motor, comes from what I want. So find your special interest and relate it to that thing. So for him, it's cars. Okay, you want cars? Let me show you. Let me come into my car and grip this wheel. You see how much grip you have to turn this wheel to hold this wheel? That's why we're building your proprioception. That's why we're building your strength in your hands.
Thank you. Oh, I don't know. My first question, hello, panel, is from Ms. Cynthia. So with the, what I want to know is the wait list, because listening to Kim, I have been on the internet and just, Googling stuff, and everywhere is a year and a half to 2 years long just to get a diagnostic evaluation. And I'm like, why are these wait lists so long?
That's the question. Why are the way? So we have a really significant workforce issue in the city or just in general, I think across the country in terms of people who specialize in diagnostic evaluations. So of course, this may be part of an early intervention evaluation, but if your child is over the age of 3, most schools are not going to want to touch that. And so you are kind of forced into this pigeonhole of having to access, places like the Art Center, where, on average, we're spending 8 to 10 hours with, between the interview, the testing, writing the report. So there's a lot of work that goes into it because we want to do a good job. But that creates the wait list. So that's one of the main reasons. I don't know. I would say that this is even a bigger issue for adults. So for those who are young adults, or if you've had concerns for your child for some time and now they are transitioning to adult, you're seeing some of these new concerns, there are even fewer providers who specialize or feel comfortable working with young adults. And so there is a significant workforce issue. So that's why we're actively involved in programs that are training up people across disciplines to be able to detect and work with and possibly diagnose autism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Ms. Kim, you about the service. Because then the second part of that is when you're trying to find the services needed, whether it's speech pathology or occupational therapist or something, well, have they been diagnosed? And then it's like, well, I'm waiting for the diagnosis, so now I have to wait for services. So it's like I can't get one without the other. So I'm just trying to be clear about your resource and is there services or is there the possibility of receiving services anywhere for any of that without being clinically diagnosed?
The tricky part about trying to get services without a diagnosis is the money you have to pay. Because insurance will not cover it willingly without that diagnosis. But there are a handful of places in the Chicagoland area, throughout Illinois actually, who can give you an autism diagnosis in like 4 months, who can get the process started in 2 months or less. And so that was one of my biggest things is I hated that, like, I called places, I got on wait lists and they were telling me, well, maybe we'll talk to you next year. Like, we can't wait that long. So I have, if you'll go to our website, chicagoautismnetwork.org/wait-tracker, or you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Every month, we've been in contact with a bunch of service providers who provide diagnostic evaluations. And we collect a list of people who can get you started in 2 months or less. Some of them take Medicaid, or some of them have a sliding scale. And so if they don't accept Medicaid, they can make it like as cheap as $200, depending on what your income is. But yeah, definitely need those services. And you can get them started in less than 6 months, definitely 2 months or less, especially if you're able to drive.
It's hard. It's, it's very hard to have patience. Have to, no matter what, have patience. You have to put them old principles down. The respect, don't do this, don't, in the house. This is the time now we gotta pick up what they're doing out there. We have to pick it up and put it in. If not, we're not gonna manage these kids. And I mean, when I say principles, don't put your elbows on the table, stuff like that. Families don't even eat together anymore. But you got to have patience no matter what. You can look on TV, and Sesame Street is much better than we had. You can sit there, you can make your own game, but you have to have patience. And by us being older, and when I say older, getting up in the morning and back hurts for real though. Yeah, that kind of stuff. When I say older, we think, okay, when you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. So you use the bathroom, wash your hands, brush your teeth. Nowadays, they gonna use the bathroom, they go to their room. If you don't catch them washing their hands, then you got to run with hand sanitizer that have it on the wall. And this is what people say, well, you're not gonna run my house. Run my house, because I'm leaving. You know what I mean? It gets to the point where you're not respecting me. We as adults need to stop. We really need to stop that. They're running the world. They're not gonna run over us. They're not gonna disrespect us if we don't allow them. But you have to have patience. Your child is gonna curse. Your child is gonna mistakenly curse. Your child is gonna mistakenly do this and do that. What we used to get popped in the mouth for, they don't get popped in the mouth for. What we used to get hit on the butt for, they're not to get hit on the butt. The thing is that if you don't have the patience to communicate, I have a 15-year-old teenager right now. He listens to all the raps in the world. If it's cursing, booty popping, he listens to all of that. And you know what I say to him every time? You know that rap? He said, yeah. I said, you know every word? He said, yeah. I said, I want a gospel rap by Friday. I want every word. And I want you to memorize it. You can't do that. They go to that phone, they go to that Xbox, and the room is up to you. However you want to put your room is fine with me. But it's nothing in there but you and a book. That's it. And when you start managing, it's not compromising, it's actually helping you. Growth are real. The stress is real. Light bill, gas bill, phone bill, water bill, every bill is real. But the last thing you need is not to have patience. You have to have patience. I changed my phone number the other day. That's the worst thing I could have did. You got to go to the bank. You have to go through. I had to have patience. I'm the most patient person that you will ever meet in your life. Very patient on everything I do. But as an older woman, I know the person get real. Go in the bathroom, close the door, and turn on water and make it real for yourself. But you got to be patient with that child. A 3-year-old is like a 7-year-old. A 7-year-old is like a 14-year-old. A 30-year-old is like a 19-year-old. So you see where I'm going with this. So I have 6 children. And now my last baby I had at the age of 43. She's 15. She's 13. The autistic one is 15. Then I have a 19-year-old. He's in Kentucky. Then I have a 28-year-old. Then I have a 30-year-old. Then I have a 34-year-old. So you see what I did? I took the equation out in the time. Now, my older children take care of my younger children. Everybody understand autism. We all have the shirts. Everybody reads up on it. New development comes, this is what this is for. New development comes, tech, who tech? What did you find out? Where did you find it? And we want to see. This is something this is not nothing that I learned from clinicians and educators. This is something that I had to do. I live in Inglewood, so you hear the shooting, you see the game. My kids don't see none of that. You know why? They turn on the air conditioning, they turn on the TV, and they turn on the music. Now, if they get popping after then, you better sit down. That's the warning of the good Lord. Sit down. But other than that, we don't develop the arguing. We play games like if you say a word, but it has to be a name now. Their word, and we have to try to match that. If we can't match that, we have to start with a letter. I just make it difficult to keep the mind going in the house. But have patience. You got to, no matter what you do with these kids, you got to have patience. Okay.
All right, you can give it to everybody. Inglewood. Okay, so where's your kid go to school?
Montesquieu was on 47
Okay,
and Cap Point.
okay, is that, what-
It's basically 95. I couldn't know the school.
is that a public school?
It's charter.
Oh, it's a charter.
It's a charter school. Not that they don't. Let me say this in a nice way. I spend a lot of time up there
Okay.
giving people directions on how to manage my child. When it got physical, this is what I did. Like she's gonna come in there with a paper. I have my 3 eligible, right? Everybody has a laptop, I have the paper. Sit down in unison, open your laptops in unison. This is because you're angry now. See, when it gets to that, it's time for me to take them out.
Are there other autistic children in that school? I'm just.
You would never know. Not that I can see.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even see nobody in a wheelchair. So when I did look at the statistics.
We have a couple of other folks who want to comment on your comments.
Yeah.
So we'll go.
Hello. Sorry. So one of the things that I think you have a lot of patience and creativity, and you've been able to compile some of those programs on your own, which is something I think many families build and do over time. I do think that some people really benefit from guidance and support, like some of the tools and resources Natasha was talking about today. And so I'd love to actually hear from a couple of you, Camille, Natasha, on some of the programs that are accessible and available without insurance, that are free and maybe virtual, that are accessible. And maybe Cynthia, you can chat about some of the programs and services that are available without a diagnosis as well as with a diagnosis. And Brandon and Kimmy, if you have additional things to add to that, because I think those might be some helpful pieces for folks to hear about.
I'll get started. So, the Color of Autism, we offer quarterly 5-week trainings. They're free to parents. They're virtual, so you can come. We have parents come from all over the United States. The philosophy of the Color of Autism is that information is power. So we don't focus a lot on events because we feel like having an event doesn't really help you when you go home. What I mean by that, and I hate to give this example, but this is the example that I'm gonna give you. It may not be a good visual one. When you go out and you have that fun day and you eat that hot dog and you chase that kid around, because you're gonna chase him around because he's gonna be overstimulated and you're gonna be hot and sweaty. But anyway, when you get home after you had that fun day event, that kid is still gonna dig in the diaper and smear poop on the wall. So you've done nothing to learn how to stop those types of behaviors. You've done nothing to learn how to support your child. So that's why it's important that we have these quarterly trainings where we introduce you to people, 5-week quarterly trainings where we introduce you to people like Natasha. We introduce you to therapists like Brianna Kelly, who's has a psychiatric background as well as a behaviorist. It's important that you get introduced to these people so that, number one, you get to see a person that looks like you that's in a vocation that you're referred to. So, for example, if they say, oh, we need you to go to speech and language pathology, SLP, they'll usually use that acronym. You'll get to see one that's Black or Latina. And then instead of being like this, where you're not really asking any questions because you feel like that person can't really relate to your life experience, all of a sudden you're talking to a lady who understands that Big Mama got problems and she always on your back about telling the child to do this, that, and the other, right? And so after we go through the 5-week training where we're giving you the tools you need, to be successful with your child, we refer you to Natasha, and then she has a 9-week course where she's going to teach you some of the principles that she showed you today. And these are free. So if you go through our 5-week training, you have to complete all 5 weeks. You can't skip. I don't care if it's Arbor Day, Labor. I don't care. If you don't go through all 5, we don't refer you out to Natasha. And there's some brochures up at the table and you can reach us that way. Our next sessions won't be starting until January because of the holidays, because we want people to enjoy their families. And we want you to enjoy your life with your autistic child.
And Supernova Parenting, we moved to Patreon, but basically what we do now is monthly, we have a focus. So this month is November. We're working on coping strategies because the country is in a dump spot. No, but we are working on coping strategies. So we're talking to parents about what maladaptive coping strategies look like and being honest about it. I'm very honest about the fact that I went to marijuana and alcohol because I didn't think that things like breathing and meditation helped me. And I felt like those other things at least let me go to sleep at night, and how that sounds good in the moment, but eventually that can lead to very terrible things. And so we want to find positive somatic and sensory coping strategies to deal with the fact that being a parent of a child who is not supported by this country can cause high stress for you. And usually the parents that I get are themselves dealing with a little bit of PTSD from fighting everybody to get support and help for their kid, from fighting even their family members, from understanding that their child is different and it's okay for their child to be different, and why you demonizing my child for being different. So we do a lot of support groups. We meet twice a month. The first support group has a theme. The second support group is for you to just come and tell us how you feel and what you feel like you need, whether that's just a listening ear or you need some resources for us to look into and work together to look for. We do a monthly class. This week is Chickadee Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself. 2 hours of talking about what happens to our bodies when we're in high stress and how to find coping strategies, connect, and problem solving and look forward. And then we also have a newsletter. And then I just randomly post, and there's 500. All of that stuff you've seen there is in an information library for you as well on the Patreon. So all of that is virtual and online. You could pay $5 a month and that's your subscription. Or if you're a big baller like I'm not, you can pay $50 a month and that's your subscription. You get to choose. We call it an equitable pricing structure because we believe that what we do is worth something, but we also understand that a lot of us ain't got nothing. And that's just being honest. A lot of us are paying $200 copays, paying $2,000 deductibles to get our children help. And so we know that you may not have it. And so $5 a month is just fine with me to get that information. And then lastly, I do the 9-week program once a quarter, so 4 times a year with parents after they leave Camille. And that is 9 weeks with me. Every week has a theme. Every week is 2 hours of information. What you just seen there, PDFs, but more. I have 9 weeks worth more of PDF resources, videos, and interactive. As y'all saw from this presentation, I'm the same way online. We're not just gonna look at slideshows. You're gonna do interactive work. We're gonna have back and forth conversations. I try to be more of a facilitator than a teacher. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think you can be a parenting expert. You can be an expert on the subject matter. I'm an expert on positive discipline. I am certified and trained on it. I'm an expert on leadership in neurodevelopmental disabilities. I'm certified and trained on that. But you can't be an expert parent because every culture is different, every parent is different, every child is different, every environment is different, every financial ability is different. And so I'm a facilitator to get us to talk about how we as a community can best support our.
So I'll just add that at the Art Center, we also struggle with long wait times for one-on-one behavior coaching. And one way that we've been able to get around that and support the most number of families as possible is a similar model where we offer 8 to 12 week parenting groups. They are actually virtual at this time, so don't have to worry as much about, getting here, childcare, things like that. They cover a lot of those evidence-based parenting practices. And we offer groups where some of them, the group is more tailored for parents of autistic children. And then some of them are for any child or with any type of behavioral concern. It does not have to be autism. Y también ofrecemos un grupo en español. So we have Spanish-speaking clinicians who provide those groups completely in Spanish, if that is, your comfort level. So those groups can be accessed through that flyer that you have on your in your packet with the QR code. That'll take you to our newsletter, which then gives you, kind of a monthly update on the groups that we are offering. But we offer those groups 4 to 5 times a year on a regular basis. So just kind of keep checking, every time you receive those after you sign up for the newsletter, and you can sign up that way. Those are covered, or those are basically through insurance, and we cover most Medicaid plans as well as private insurance.
There were some families during the break were asking about services for teenagers and young adults. I know we sort of mentioned it, but you can maybe speak a little bit about that.
Some of the parenting groups, actually, we divide them by age. So we have, a parenting group for, little kids, 4 to 7. And then we actually offer a version of that for teenagers because, big kids, big problems, we can't use some of the same exact techniques, in terms of physically moving people. So just look at the age range that we're offering for that particular period. And then one of the things that I'm actively involved in is social skills groups for young adults and teenagers. So those again are on a rotating basis. We usually most frequently offer social skills groups, but we also do anxiety groups, sex ed for teens and adults. So a lot of really important topics being covered at the Art Center, but it's an easy way to get in, fairly quickly if you indicate your interest.
Something if I could just really quick. In our parent training and things that we offer at the Color of Autism to everyone. You don't have to be a person of color to participate. Point in case, we have a lovely woman who's been very supportive to us, who came as a parent, and she sent me this lovely email. She was like, "I'm not Black. Can I come anyway?" I'm like, "Yeah, come." And so she was part of the weekly groups. And one week she didn't show up. And it was like an explosion. I'm getting inbox, Miss Camille, where Megan at? You better come find Megan. Can you call her? Call her on the phone right now. See what she got. So she was part of the group. And the best thing that I think all of those 30 people got out of it is that they all became interconnected. And they all are still, this was like 2 years ago, they're all still friends this day. And one of the things with that particular person was that she was a major bakery buyer. She is a major bakery buyer for one of our supermarkets. And we had another parent who had a son who has a baking business. And she was able to help this young man get placement in grocery store shelves. And that was because of the family and connection. We're not evidence-based. I mean, they'll talk about evidence-based stuff, so I'm not gonna tell you that. But we give you the practical stuff that people, she's lovely, but sometimes she can't give you necessarily because she's more technical. Yeah, she's more technical, but we give you what I like to call the real life experience of what's going on in your house when your grandmama getting on your nerves, because that's her name, grandma. Yeah.
If I can add to these, I know we're talking about like programs that can support. So outside of here, I run my own mentoring program called Brandon School Age Mentoring, where I don't have the most flashy title, but basically it's a program that works with kids about that elementary and middle school, early high school age, where I basically work with kids with and without disabilities who have like different challenges. And help them work on their emotional self-esteem, help them regulate their feelings, help them talk through their feelings, help them realize that it's okay to feel a certain way. A lot of the male members that work in the group always have the mindset of they have to be tough, they have to like hold it in and like hang tough, and I try to emphasize that it's not important, like it's okay to express yourself. Um, and for this program, other than like my own gas and mileage and like activity reimbursement, I actually do this program free of charge. I do that in spirit of my own mentor that I've had for the past, gosh, almost 14 years now, who's helped me get through some really tough times and some really tough hurdles in my life. So kind of like my, not to quote these social media people, but pay it forward kind of way. And it's just been a really, really wonderful way to kind of like give back and like help these kids grow and to like see where they've been, where I started with them, like when I started with them 3 years ago to where they are now. Some of them, who are like avid sports players who are graduated in middle school and everything like that to just being successful. It's like it's one of the greatest chores I have. So I always offer that program as like a resource for them.
I have a question for Brandon. With you receiving your diagnosis of ADHD and autism at 18, I wanted to know what were some of the strategies and supports that helped you the most in navigating and building your own strengths?
So prior to getting the diagnosis, things definitely were tough because I didn't have a lot of support, and a lot of times the behaviors that I showed, the needs that I had were just this, me not trying hard enough, for me just misbehaving. When I was having trouble in school, I was just being lazy. When I was having trouble making friends, it was just because I was being difficult and everything like that. Once I got the diagnosis, I got access to more support, and was able to have able to have people close to me, like my family and some people I know, like help understand and learn about me better. It was a lot easier for me to like have that push and that support to be able to, go on to school and be able to get the education, to be able to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, to be able to be more social. Because prior to that, I barely graduated high school, Um, if, I got always this to be blunt. I know I'm working on a doctor right now. In 6th grade, I told my mother, "Mom, I had my best report card ever. I only got 2 Fs this time." No joke, because like it was like that bad. So definitely, I think the biggest thing, and just for all the kids in general that have disabilities, like that support is like it's not a whether of like if or not. It's like a must. Like they need that support, they need that corner, they need that understanding, they need that empathy. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to get to that point without that support. They can get to that point, but they need the support, they need the understanding in order to do that. And for me, that's the biggest thing. Like having the mindset, like having the mindset in that corner, knowing that I have resources, access things like different therapies and things like that, and have increase people's awareness about understanding me through what helped me grow to where I am right now.
Speaking of non-clinical services and Brandon's mentorship program, I've seen from 10 years ago students that have benefited from his mentorship, and it's been great to see their confidence and esteem blossom. So mentorship programs like what Brandon offers are truly such a valuable asset to the community. I'm wondering if anyone else would like to speak to some of the non-clinical kind of advocacy support, access resources that really help their children and teens and adults kind of blossom and find some of that connection and support, as well as families. It's open to anyone.
I'm based in Georgia, but my daughter does School of Rock. It is a music program where they first allow her once a week to just experiment with another small group of kids, with 5 children total, and they experiment with different instruments, just playing them, getting to know them, touching them, whatever. And then once they become very familiar, they choose an instrument, they get one-on-one lessons with that instrument. And that has been very helpful to my oldest daughter, Paris, who's minimum speaking, sensory seeker. We noticed she was musically inclined anyway, and we were already having her beat drums to beat out her anger. And so it was just a natural step. I know someone said they were an art teacher, Chrissy. Art therapy for my Riley, who, as y'all saw, likes the utensils, but just doesn't want to get dirty. So getting her some art therapy was very much good in helping her to get kind of comfortable with dirt, get comfortable with paint, get comfortable with color, get comfortable with sensory in different ways. But also to deal with her emotions and paint out her emotions. And then we also have the benefit of, I helped some autistic adults. Emory University in Atlanta has a program that has support groups, very similar in mentor groups. But those support groups aren't just about how are you feeling and you need to learn social skills. They also have very special interest-based support groups. So there is a Dungeons and Dragons a support group, because some of us autistic people have very big imaginations and we like to play make-believe and things like that in cosplay. They had a video game support group. So they could find, but it's also so you can find your people. Because from birth until 31, I had moments where I thought I was an 8. Did not feel like my family understood me. I'm the oldest of 7 children. I'm also the only mixed kid. But so every time in my house, everything I did felt wrong. It felt weird. Even when I would read books and when I go to school and get the values from school and I would be taught that those were the right things, I was told I talked white. I was told, all these different things. And then I just felt, and it just continued on. When I got older, when I went to college, I still felt weird. When I joined the military, I still felt weird. And it wasn't like that puzzle fell into place until I got diagnosed and was around other autistic adults like me. So finding them a community of people like them that they can get to know, that they can talk to, that they can hang out with. Because everything isn't woe is me. Sometimes I do just want to play Dungeons and Dragons and put on a wizard hat. Or I want to play some video games, but just play video games with other people who think like me. Or I want to play board games or whatever their special interest is, but helping them to find their people, because their people are out.
Oh, and also I had to look this up this month, I got old people running. All right, so, OutSchool and the Khan Academy, they do offer courses for neurodivergent, kids and their special interests. And, I will tell you that the Khan Academy and OutSchool, they do, offer, scholarships through different public schools. They'll give them a special codes for that. And so you might want to ask your child's school, did you get any codes for the Khan Academy? Did you get any codes for OutSchool? But I also think that they have an opportunity if you don't have the means to pay, and I'm not assuming that you don't, but if you don't have the means to pay, I think they have the opportunity for your child still to participate. So I had to look that up. Sorry, I wasn't being rude. Can't remember that.
And one quick plug, if folks want to, on their way out, grab a magnet from the table there. The Autism Resource Directory is a really comprehensive online tool. It's also associated with a phone number that our team of social workers manage and can provide not only the clinical evaluation resources, but recreation resources, music resources, support groups, advocacy groups that really fit with some of those descriptors. So maybe your kiddo isn't into Dungeons and Dragons or hasn't evolved to, that level of skill, but maybe they're really just looking for a play group, or you're wanting to access something with a parent and child outdoor activity. Those are things that do exist in the Chicagoland area. And Kimmy, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that too, but the Autism Resource Directory is a great tool for that, and a free one, of course.
I feel like the Chicagoland area has a lot of programs. It's just a matter of finding them. My daughter used to go to Hubbard Street in West Loop, had this fantastic special needs dance group where they used visual supports and had a really structured environment and just created the most fun and loving environment where kids could have fun and learn the basics of dance and like be active and engaged and just felt loved. It was so fantastic. And it really helped my daughter kind of build her way into like the neurotypical dance groups as well. Like just be able to find her place where she could function. She found her confidence in the neurodiverse area and then was able to build skills to be able to do new environments and new activities. But there's all sorts of things around the Chicagoland area, and there's arts, there's sports leagues, there's I know that there's a basketball camp that comes out every once. There's a new one called Juice Hoops Foundation, where they do a fun kids basketball league every quarter. I think it's really fun. But yeah, also, so their directory is great. We also have a lot of resources for arts and recreation on our directory as well.
And for those sensory seekers who love climbing, there's a climbing program. I know a couple families in here have accessed before. Not a real plug, but it's great. I think we have time for one more question. So one more question for our panelists today.
This is a general question for pretty much anyone on the panel. So what are some strategies for managing sensory sensitivities in a way that doesn't overwhelm our child, but still help them engage in the world with other people?
We're gonna pull up the Padlet, yep. And you'll have this, they're gonna send it to you. But because you asked, and because as an autistic person, I depend on visual aids anyway, that's just my thing. So in the documentation that I gave you, you're gonna go under PDF. So if you look, it's separated in columns, try to organize it so it wouldn't be so overwhelming. So the first column is support resources. That's gonna be different websites that talks about different things, and they're all labeled. So you'll see everything from AAC apps that you can use to put on a tablet if you already have one, to if you just wanna do devices, things like that, right? There's videos for all the stuff that I was teaching you. There's videos in there of it happening in my family and you seeing it in real time. Then there's PDFs here. So for your question, you would go to the PDF label. I'm gonna start at the top and scroll down because there's a lot. You'll go to the PDF that is labeled sensory diet and support. Okay, you click on that. It's gonna give you exactly what I taught you, but more in a scientific way. It's gonna explain what sensory processing is, right? It's gonna explain that diagram you saw of sensory seeker versus sensory avoider and how that shows up. It's gonna give you a checklist. If you still aren't sure, is my child a sensory seeker or a sensory avoider? There's a sensory seeker and sensory sensitive or avoider checklist. Then it talks about what a sensory diet is and gives you examples of that. So you can start incorporating that in your house. But then it talks about what you just asked me, calming activities for a sensory seeker. So if you have a sensory seeker who's really struggling, you need them to calm down, some different things that you can do with them to help them. It gives you some sensory diet cheat ideas, because let's say this is all new to you. So what do I need to do to help my child's proprioception or vestibular, tactile, or auditory? It gives you some ideas on what to incorporate in your household for that, right? Even sensory bins. If you're like, I don't know how to make no slime, what can I do? It gives you some ideas on different things. And I've done, we've been broke before, y'all. So I've done grits and pinto beans in a container. And my daughter had a blast with cups and spoons playing with those grits and pinto beans in a plastic bin. Okay. It also talks about homework, because your children get older and they still have sensory issues and you're trying to get them to do homework or schoolwork and things like that. So it gives you strategies on that. And then what you just asked for, calming activities for your sensory sensitive child. It's going to give you a list of different ways to help them calm down, to support them. Okay. And then if your child has sensory overload, it gives you some ideas on what that can look like on a child. So you can start looking at cues of what's coming up. And then it tells you ways to help them and strategies. So that is a full piece of resource that is in that, and that's not the only resource. There's plenty of things like that in there, but that's one specifically for your question. This is the Padlet that I used to teach to you today, and it will be made available to you by Sparks. Yeah.
the Color of Autism Parent Training, out at the table, there's brochure. You go to our website and sign up for our mailing list, because our next training isn't gonna be until January, because we're out for the holiday season. And I haven't picked a date for January, so I know that's very vague, but if you join the mailing list, you'll get correspondence from us about, the parent training, but then other useful information that you might need. We have a theme every month. And I do want to tell you all this, just in case you didn't know this, like one month we talked about how you get IDs for your children. If they're like 10 or older, I recommend you go to your DMV, Secretary of State, whatever it's called in these parts, and get your child an identification card, so that if they're in a loafer or a leisurely stroller, you'll have something that's in a centralized system that can identify them. We encourage people to do that. And so we talked about that in our newsletter on how you could just go and get it. Because a lot of people think you have to be 18 to get an ID, and you don't have to be. You could be, I say 10, because they're going to change drastically over the years. So by the time it expires, it'll be time to get another one.
The trainings, the 5-week training, do you guys offer like a certain time? Is it like, I could just log in? Because I kind of work, a 9-hour shift. So I just want to make sure I get home about 6:30 on average. So I was just wondering, you guys offer evening?
We don't, unfortunately. Our trainings are from like 11 to 1 on Saturdays, and we don't record. And one of the reasons why we don't record is because we want our parents to be autonomous. We want them to, we don't want people to feel judged. We just kind of want it to be like free range. So like if you want to take your camera off, I couldn't even think of the word. You can't. But that's something we'll look into. And I also forgot to say, we also have translation. You know, Zoom has a translator button, but we also have a translator, Maria, who you can come in and say, you know, Spanish and sign language of choice, and Maria will translate for whoever needs the assistance. So.
But it is on a Saturday.
It's on a Saturday. It's on Saturday.
That works?
Yeah.
It's on Saturday because we know that most people work during the week, but then some people don't, you know what I mean? But it's on Saturdays from 11 to 12:30, I'm sorry, 11 to 12:30, and then Chicagoland time, that would be from 10 to 12. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're out of time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your wonderful questions. One round of applause. I know we shared a lot of information here. We've been talking about park, we've been talking about color autism, we're talking about all the different programs. Holly, can you talk a little bit about follow-up from here, and then we can like make sure that everybody has the next steps. Yeah.
Everybody registered with an email. So through that registration email, you'll receive links as well as PDFs of the flyers that you received today, links to the Color of Autism website, Natasha's Padlet, as well as links to some of the other programs that we talked about for Fresh Art Spark, and Kimmy's, our local advocacy program. Brian, like you doing for your second. But so all of that will be coming your way, realistically Monday or Tuesday. It will be a manual process for myself.
And feel free to stop by, get the flyers, take your time.
We'll be milling about. So if folks have any questions, please come up, ask us. But otherwise, thank you all for your time. I hope you still come here. You go and get them in the next couple of minutes. We do have to release our volunteers. You're welcome to bring them back down here for questions or more pizza. I over ordered, of course. So if you need a second round of lunch, please help yourself.
It's great to see you. We've had like probably pre-COVID, honestly. Tabling event. Tabling event. Oh my gosh. How are you? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know? Like my own daughter, when she needs to read something, like I'd love to get feedback. It's like an email her. I schedule it.
No, yeah, no, it's
Right? So.
So, yes.
Every 3 years, and we just got it done last year.
So put it in your calendar.
So every year, reach out to.
Yeah, seriously. So,
Yeah. And I only did about 5 minutes, like.
Oh, really?
I personally dropped off there to become, you know, trying to.
It's hard. It's hard to navigate. Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. Listen, it's so hard. I looked at all my.
No, that's great.
No, but it's.
He needs therapy too.
Oh, sure.
Why my child, for him, it's so much.
So you see, you could just, with dyslexia, go focus and be able to do all the sounding out things they want us to do, and the words that are not looking at that. Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely, and then when you tell them, trust me, it doesn't necessarily have to be dyslexia. There are so many different intellectual development. Mine is math numbers and math Japanese. I'm the letters around that. If we move, worrying about something, what's going on. Yeah. One teacher, they may have. That's. Who lives in? Go to his medical doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have to take a lot. So we won't just be our. So we'll have this next week, we'll have like OCD, you know, you have blood. So you'll have things that happen because. So he can have and that way, whether it's like that is whatever. So we can get that information. So when that diagnosis allows. Yeah.
Maybe like 1.5.
Yeah. I'm getting stuff done.